Hi guys, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. What you see in the vise is a fly by Jimmy Tyrrell. He's an Irish tyer, and this is a dry mayfly with a detached body. Now it may look a little complex, but we're going to go through it stage by stage, and hopefully by the end of it you'll be able to tie your own version of this fly. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now the first thing, and probably the hardest part of this fly, is the detached body. So let's get on and show you how that's done. Now the first thing you need to do is get a darning needle, quite a thin one, and place it into your vise like so. And before I start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of wax to the needle, and this is just going to help at the end when it comes to getting your detached body off of the needle. So first things first, I'm going to use some moose mane. Now moose mane is a fantastic material. It's great for bodies of flies, but it makes exceptional tail ends. It's so thin, but it's very robust. Now I'm going to select 3 and I'm going to line up the tips like so. So I've got the tips all nice and lined up. Now the first thing I want to do is add a little bit of thread to my needle, and what I've got is just some green nano silk. I think this was from Fish On, I can't quite remember. I've not used it in a while, and I'm just going to get some open turns onto the needle. Don't want to get too much thread on at this point, and I want to come back up the needle probably just over an inch, or maybe 5 centimeters if you're European. Then I can take away my rat's tail. Now next I'm going to come in with my tips that I've lined up, and what I want to do is I don't want them to protrude too far beyond the point of the needle. So maybe a centimetre, half an inch at most. Then I'm going to come down, catch that in. Forgive my fingers being in the way. This bit's probably the hardest part. Catch my 3 aligned tips in, and then I'm going to come up. Now I'm not particularly harsh with my wraps here. They're just lightly wrapped, because what I do want to do is have this loose enough to slide off the needle. I'm going to come back up to the tip of the fly. Next then, what I'm going to be using is from Simplify. This is the superfine dubbing. Now I've got the collection, but the one I'm using, if you just wanted to buy the packet to tie the olive, is SF6150, and it's just an olive dub. And as you can see, or you'll see when I bring it up to this camera, it's just a nice fine material. So what you want to do is try and stretch it out so that you've got a thin, almost like a wispy strip. And what you want to do is just catch that on to your thread. Now this isn't the only way of doing this, it's just the way I prefer to do it. I know some boys that they don't even need thread, they just use the dubbing on their own. I think Jimmy just uses the dubbing on his own, but I like to have the security of the thread. So I'm going to just dub that on, wrap it up, try and make it a little bit thicker as you get towards the top of the needle. Just take out a little bit more of the dubbing. And then I'm going to bring that all the way up. Now as you can see, I'm starting to taper up, getting it a little bit thicker, and that's a bit of a mess. I'm going to come back, not happy with that, so I'll come back a little bit. The dubbing wasn't tight enough on for my liking. And I think just for belts and braces, I've probably got enough on here now, but just for belts and braces, I'm going to add a little bit more, like so. And then at the end, I can just put in a half hitch or two. Oops. Like so. And then I'm not going to take my thread right up at the end. What I want to do before I get it off the needle, I just want to twist it in my fingers like so. This does two things. It loosens it all up and it just helps bed that dubbing into the body. Next, I want to remove it and it should slide straight off. Now, what I can do next is just take my thumb and forefinger and bend it to the shape I want. Now, it's very light, this, and it'll float no bother. So that's stage one. We've got our detached body ready to tie on. Guys, if you're getting value from the videos and you're enjoying what I'm doing, please think about subscribing to the channel. It's absolutely free and you can unsubscribe at any time. I would really appreciate your support. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H925 barbless hook. This one's at size 10. It's on a heavy wire and it's finished in bronze. So why would I want to be using a heavy wired hook for a dry fly? Well, Jimmy Tyrrell is from Ireland, and obviously they fish the big lochs over there, and there's every chance of catching 5 pound plus brown trout. What you don't want is a light hook that's going to bend out for these sort of fish. So hence the heavy wire. I like to use barbless. I don't kill fish unless I'm in competition anymore, so this is probably the ideal hook for this fly. Now the thread I'm going to be using today is nano silk. It's from Simplify. It's at 12/0, and as you can see, it's black. As always with the nano silks, I like to get a tiny touch of super glue onto the shank of the hook, and then I'm going to use my silk to spread it about. Now I'll be honest with you, the hard part of this fly is out of the way. That detached body is probably something that you've not tried before. If you have, you've probably got a little bit of frustration with it, but it is worth persevering. It does get easier. The best way with the tails actually is sit down and do several so that they're ready to go. So I've got one here that I prepared earlier, and I'm going to dress it up to the hook. I want it to protrude probably the length of the hook point. I'm going to catch that in. Don't worry about these loose ends just yet. Just leave them as they are. And once you're content that you've caught that body in, just make sure it's going to sit right on the fly. Just tilting to one side at the moment. I'm just going to play about with it with my fingers until I get it sitting how I want it. Once I'm content, I'll come in and just remove the waste there. Okay, what I like to do next is add a little bit of the superfine dubbing again. Just take a little bit off and cover up where I've tied the body in. And what it ends up being is it's like a continuation of the body. Now, in the dry fly series, where are we at? We're at the part where we've done the emergence or a couple of emergent patterns. There's obviously so many different types of emerger out there that you couldn't cover them all, but I wanted to just show you a couple of flies. Now what we're on to now is the dun. This is the adult stage of the insect. It sits exactly on the top of the water and represents the adult ready to take flight into the world. Now the next thing then is I'm going to add a little CDC loop, and for that I'm using some Trout Line Select CDC. It comes in these packets. You don't get any rubbish with this. It's all very usable feathers, and I've already taken 2 out the packet. Now what I want to do with these is just align the tips once more, and I'm going to catch them in at the thick end of the stem first. So I'll lay it down on top of the fly, get a couple of pinching loops in so I can just see how it's sitting, lock it into place, then I can come in with my scissors and remove that waste. The next thing then is I can grab the tips of the CDC. What I want to do is just pull that over in a loop, and then I can trap in the tip section there like so, and that's just going to help the fly float like a cork. Just tidy up the front here a little, and you don't need to trim away anything, that's sitting just how I want it. Next then, we're going to add in a couple of wings. Now what I'm using is just quite a cheap cock cape. It's very light, and I'm going to select 2 feathers from the cape. Try and get 2 feathers of the same size, then dress it up to the fly like so. Once you've got your wings in place, you can hold them with your right hand while you pick up your bobbin and just catch them in. Now for easy use here, I'm just going to get rid of this front part of the feather, and what I want to do now is grab my 2 wings, bring them forward like so, and then get my thread in behind them. Now what I want to do with these wings is have them standing up, so if I can just pull this one forward a little bit more, and then what I'm going to do is figure of 8 around the wings, just to get them to stand where I want. The one on your side seems to be behaving quite well. The one on my side is going to take a little bit more encouragement. Okay, so that's the wings standing up there, quite nice now. Next I'm going to come in, just trim off some of these extra fibres that seems to have appeared. I'm going to tidy the whole thing up, at the front especially. Then I'm going to come around the back of my wings and get another couple of turns in. So far so good. Now the next thing then is the hackling material. Again, I'm just using a cock cape. It's fairly cheap. I've selected a feather and I've already stripped off, leaving a little bit at the end that I'm going to use to tie in. Now before I catch in my hackling, I'm going to just add a little bit of wax like so. Now obviously when would you use a dry fly that's going to sit right on the top when the hatch is in full swing and there's adults coming off? I suppose when there's plenty of adults on the surface is the best time to use dry flies, but I've got to be very honest, I think even when that's happening, I always like to use an emerging pattern. I just think an emerger presents a much easier meal to the trout than an adult that's about to try and take flight, although you often see trout trying to take them. Next then, I'm going to grab the tip of my feather and my hackle pliers. I'm going to bring the stem back just to bring it out at a 90-degree angle from the hook. And then I'm going to start wrapping my hackle. Now you can count your turns if you want every fly to look the same. I don't worry, I just keep going until I've got to the point where I think that looks right. I'll bring my thread to the front of the hook there. Start to pull everything back from the shank. Bring your hackle in front of your wing. It's not sitting quite right, but it's getting there. Every turn, I'm just bringing that hackling back until I get to the head of the fly. Next, I'll catch in that tail end, like so. Take away the end. Again, I'm going to just get a couple of wraps in. I'm going to pull all the bits back and start to build my head. Now I hope I've not absolutely butchered Jimmy's fly. It is a cracking little beastie. I've seen him tie these at the Irish fly fishing fair. He's such a talented tyer. I felt right out of my depth sat next to him. But I've had a couple of goes at it and I'm fairly happy with what I'm creating. So hopefully you'll find the confidence to give this one a go like I did. If you don't stretch yourself with fly tying and fishing for that matter, you'll never see any improvement. So I've just added a little bit of super glue in the hope that I would avoid what I've just done, which is put super glue onto the hackling. I think I've just about managed to save that one. I'm going to come in with my snips and I'll just mess with the wing a little bit, preen it up, but this is all going to get treated with up high from Hunts. That's my preferred floatant, and that'll float no problem at all. I hope you've enjoyed that. It's probably one of the most complicated flies I've tied on the channel. I'm not much one for making life difficult. I'm always looking for the easy option, but there wasn't much easy about doing the detached body. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.